Hi, it's Professor Seagraves. We're going to look at the Washington Highlands case study today, and this is a question of whether I should refinance an apartment complex or not. I've had a loan for the last 4 years. Rates have dropped quite a bit, and I think I'm going to hold the apartment complex for another 2 or 3 years. So the question is, should I refinance or not? So let's take a look at how we might make that decision. Again, as I had mentioned 4 years ago, Not at All of Capital purchased a building, an apartment complex in Janesville, Wisconsin, 33 units, 35,000 square feet, 16 two bedrooms, 16 bedrooms with a den or one bedrooms, and a house. And we have some detached garages, separate meters, and they paid $1.625 million with an 80% LTV at a loan of 8.25%, 25-year term with a 7-year balloon and a 0.5% early termination fee on any outstanding balance if you terminate the loan early. And at the time, the fees for the appraisal and miscellaneous other items was $12,000. In addition to that, they paid a 1% origination fee. So the first thing to consider is we're going to have new terms for a new loan, but we're going to be comparing it to what if we hadn't done anything. And in this case, we find out later that we're looking at either 2 or 3 more years. So the big question is, well, what would have happened had we not done anything? And we don't need to know anything about the new loan, anything about the refinancing to first calculate our current situation. What would our financial situation look like if we stayed in this mortgage for another 2 or 3 years? And let's take a look and see what that is first. So let's go ahead and lay out our assumptions for the scenario where we don't do anything. We just stay with our current loan for 2 or 3 more years. So let's first calculate our payments for the next couple of years, and then what might happen, what we would have to do at the end of the second year or at the end of the third year. So we figure out our payments first. So we had a loan of we had a purchase price of $1.625 million. We had an 80% loan, so our loan was equal to 80% of the 1.625. So we borrowed $1.3 million. Let's go back to our assumptions again. The loan was 8.25% with a 25-year term. So 8.25% and a 25-year term. So our payment, let's go ahead and enter a column in here so we know what all these things are. Price, LTV, loan, rate, term, and our payment. So our payment is going to be the Excel function PMT. We're going to take our rate, we'll point to that, divide it by 12 since it's monthly payments, and we'll take our term and we'll multiply it by 12 since we have monthly payments, and our present value we're going to borrow $1.3 million. So our payment every month is going to be $10,249. And so we'll take a look at that. So our annual payment is going to be this amount times 12. So equals that times 12. So $122,000, about almost $123,000 is going to be our annual payments for the loan. And so let's go ahead and lay this thing out, and we'll say fees, payments, and our payoff. Those are going to be the 3 things that we're going to be concerned with this loan. So that time 0 is right now. So during that first year, we're looking forward here, that first year, second year, and third year. And then this would be, we'll just copy this. And this would be if we hold, this is our 2-year look, and this down here will be our 3-year look. And if we keep this old loan, what kind of fees are we going to have to pay today? 0. What are our payments going to be? Our payments are going to be this amount per year. So we're going to copy that over, so I'll go ahead and use the F4 to lock that down. So if we're going to go over for 2 years, we can delete that 3 for now. And I'm going to get rid of these cents. We don't need those, so I'm going to use the Excel function there to get rid of those cents. And so now we have payments of $122,988 or $998, and we can copy those down because those would be the same thing if we were to, for the first 3 years, those payments really wouldn't change in those 3 years. Okay, and then our payoff at the end of the second year. Remember, we have a 25-year term, and as of this point right here, we've already been paying on it for 4 years, so this would be after the 5th year, and this would be after the 6th year. So to calculate the payoff on a loan, we're just going to do the present value of the future payments. Present value, and our rate is that rate again divided by 12. Number of periods is we have 25 years minus 6, because we're already 4 years into the loan, and then we have 2 more years here, so minus 6. But this is monthly, so we still have to multiply it by 12. And our payment, and then we're going to use our monthly payment, is that amount there. And so our payoff on the loan, and since this is an outflow, a negative cash flow, I'm going to go ahead and put a minus just to make everything consistent. So we're going to have to pay out. I'm going to get rid of those pennies too, just to make it look nicer. So we're going to pay out. We're going to have to pay out $1.178 million to pay off that loan. And we'll insert a sum here, and we'll just total this up. And we'll just put the we'll use the Excel sum function and copy that across. And we can see here that we use the dollar feature there. I like the red, and one of the things you can do in Excel is I can copy this cell, and I can come down here and I can just paste the formats. So if I just want to paste the formats and not the actual values, I can just do paste formatting right there. I like that red. It shows the negatives in red. And I like underlining, so I'm going to do a little underlining there. So we can see what my cash flows are, but we've forgotten one thing. Remember, this was a 7-year term loan. This original loan was for 7 years. So if I pay it off before 7 years, I'm going to have to pay this early termination fee. I'm going to have to pay this 0.5% on the outstanding balance of the loan. So if I pay it off in the 6th year, I'm going to have to pay 0.5% on this amount here. So normally I would point to a value, but I'm going to say 0.005 times this payoff amount. And we're going to, since this is a negative cash flow, I'm going to put a minus in there. Oh, and I still want that nice formatting there. Actually, we already have it. Already is negative. So there we go. We'll get rid of those pennies again. So it looks like in the first year, we're going to have to we're going to make payments of $122,000, and we're going to have to pay off the loan. If we go ahead and sell the building after the 2nd year, we're going to have to pay these early termination fee, same payments as the year before, and then we're going to have to go ahead and pay off the loan. And so our totals are there. Alright, so we're going to follow the same basic process for the next period. But if we look at the fees this time, keep in mind that this will be the 7th year. So if we pay off after the 7th year, we have no early termination fee if we go ahead and keep it for this period of time. But we will have to pay off the loan. So we'll have to pay off the old loan. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Actually, what I'll do is if I'll go into the cell and copy it like so, and if I go into this cell here and paste, it will actually paste the complete formula, which keeps all these guys aimed at the right thing, even without having had the absolute cell references. So that's just a little trick. You can paste a formula into a cell without putting all the F4s to make these absolutes with the dollar symbols in front of these. It's another little trick that you can use. The problem is, what I have here is I have minus 6 because we were in the 6th year up here. So now I need to do minus 7. So our payoff is going to be a little bit less on this loan. because I've made one more year's worth of interest payments. And we'll go ahead and get rid of those pennies here again. And then I'm going to copy this cell here because that's sum function. And we'll go ahead and put some underlines there. Okay, so here we have our two scenarios. We have the scenario if we keep our old loan for 2 more years. We have our scenario where we keep our old loan for 3 more years. 1, 2, 3. And what we have here, let's get rid of this. This is not correct. We don't want to add those up there. That didn't make any sense. And we'll pull that back over here. I wonder if this sum function has those in there as well. It sure does. That's a mistake. Let's pull that down. We don't want the column heading in there. And it wouldn't make a hill of beans difference in this analysis, but let's go ahead and get it correct. So now we have our 2-year look and our 3-year looks. If we keep the old loan for 2 years or 3 years, this is what's going to happen. This is our current future scenarios for keeping our old loans. All right, well, now that we know what our scenario would be if we kept our old loan, now let's look to our decision. Should we get the new loan? So let's pop over to our case and let's take a look. We have this neat building, set of buildings. There's a little building that the operator lives in. And here's what we have. Rates have dropped from the old rates from the same old bank, but rates have dropped to 6.5. But now the LTV has decreased, which means they're not. That's a little riskier, probably. They're thinking these days, and a minimum debt service coverage ratio of 1.25, which means that my NOI needs to be 1.25%, 125% of my payment. And they're only offering a 15-year term with a 7-year balloon. Same 7-year balloon. Rents have gone up a little bit, and the property NOI is up 15%. It's now $140,000. Cost and fees have gone up by 10%, which means that $12,000 I paid before has now gone up by 10%. Cap rates, which had been 7.5% way back when we bought it, are now up to 8.5. Again, this is indicating that maybe times are a little bit riskier these days, that investors are requiring a little higher rate of return. They still want a 1% origination fee for the new loan, and they still want an early termination fee of 0.5%, half a percent. And our company normally uses a discount rate of 12% for decisions like this. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to sell the building in 2 or 3 years. Okay, so let's take a look at what would happen if we got a new loan. So we're going to replace the old loan with the new loan. All right, so how is that going to work? Well, first thing to take a look, we've got all this stuff up here, which says that we have 75% loan to value and a debt service coverage ratio requirement of 1.25%. So don't necessarily assume that the bank is automatically going to loan you enough to pay off your old loan, because the building value may have gone down and maybe they don't want to loan as much, or maybe the income has gone down or up in some way, so you might now be able to afford a larger payment, and that's kind of where this debt service coverage ratio requirement comes in. So first thing, let's figure out how much we would even be able to borrow in the first place. So let's jump back over to our spreadsheet and we'll figure that out. All right, let's go ahead and I'll insert a row here. So we'll just say our old loan. I'll add a few more rows in here just to give us some more room, because we're going to have a few other items to put in here. So how are we going to figure out what we would want to borrow? Well, ideally we could borrow the amount to pay off the old loan. So let's see what our payoff here is after 4 years. So our payoff on the old loan after 4 years is going to be the present value of our rate divided by 12, number of periods, and keep in mind our number of periods is going to be our 25 minus 4 years. 25 minus 4, because this is after 4 years, and that's times 12 because it's monthly. And then we're going to take a look here at that same payment that we've been making. So our payoff on the old loan is about $1.2 million. So it'd be great if the bank would loan us this amount of money again, but keep in mind they're not necessarily going to do that. All right, so let's put up here I'm going to change this to say price slash value. And let's take a look at what is the building worth today. So the first thing that we need to consider, I'll insert here, and we'll put cap rate. And we'll insert one more so we can say NOI. Now if you remember that relationship between NOI and cap rate and value, those three things go together. So our NOI for the new time period was $140,000. And the cap rate, if we jump back over here, we find out that our cap rate, right now, cap rates have risen to 8.5%. So 8.5% is our current cap rate. So the current value of the building, according to the bank, this is obviously a very simplified way of looking at it, but if we take our NOI and divide that by our cap rate, we're going to get a building that is worth $1.64 million. Well, we have another requirement here that says our debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. So we're going to look at that one also. But if we have our 80% LTV, which is now dropped to 75%, now we are at 75% is our loan to value. So how much is the bank going to loan us if they think the building is worth $1.64 million? How much would they be willing to lend us this time? So we're going to lend us 75% of this 1.64 million. Ooh, they're only going to loan us $1.235 million. Well, okay, that's fine because we only need to borrow 1.225. So we're pretty good so far. We're feeling good. We got at least enough. The bank will loan us enough to pay off the old loan. So we should be good there so far. But wait a second, they're only going to loan us enough so that we can make our proper payments. So the maximum that we're going to be able to have in our maximum of our payment is going to be, so the NOI is 1.25% of that max. So how are we going to calculate that? Let's go ahead and figure that out. Let's go ahead and put in here our debt service coverage ratio requirement. Debt service coverage ratio has got to be 1.25. Well, 125%. Okay. Or 1.25. It's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to put out here maximum payment. And we'll do this kind of in two steps so you can kind of see how this is going to work. So our maximum payment that we're going to be able to have is going to be a payment that is going to lead to an NOI being 1.25% of that. So we're just going to simply take our NOI and divide that by 1.25. So the maximum amount of payment that we're going to be able to have in this scenario is $112,000 per year. And if we think about that, that's going to give us a maximum monthly payment of that amount divided by 12. So there's our maximum monthly payment. Let's go ahead and make these in dollars. That's my maximum monthly payment. Okay. Now I'm going to slide out here and I'll just say maximum loan. So if that's my maximum loan, what's going to be my maximum? That's my maximum payment. What's going to be my maximum loan? Well, the maximum loan is just going to be the present value of this payment under the new loan terms. Well, what were those new loan terms? Those new loan terms were 6.5%. And we had a 15-year term. So we're just going to use the same present value calculation that we've always done. Equals PV, and is our rate divided by 12, number of periods times 12, and our payment. Okay. And we'll go ahead and make that payment a negative amount just to make all this look pretty. Whoops. All right. So the maximum the bank is going to loan us based on how much income we have, this $140,000, is about just a little almost $1.1 million. So remember, if we have this amount of NOI, the bank's not going to loan us. They're only going to loan us so that the NOI is 125% of our annual payment. And our annual payment, if you recall, is just 12 times this $9,333. And the present value of this amount coming in every month available to make my payment is going to give me a loan on these new terms of $1 million. So the bank's only going to loan me the smallest of these numbers. They're either going to loan me this amount to pay off the old loan. They're going to loan me this amount based on the loan to value, or they're going to loan me this amount here. Well, it should be pretty clear that this is the smallest amount, so that we know that this is going to be the amount that they're going to loan us, and this is going to be our monthly payment, because that's a maximum monthly payment they're going to allow us to make on our new loan. So let's go ahead and lay out our scenarios for our new loan. We'll go ahead and copy these functions down. All the formulas are going to get messed up, but we'll fix them. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to have here. This is 2 years, the 2-year scenario with the new loan. Well, the first thing we're going to have to do if we refinance is we're going to have to pay that early termination fee on the old loan. So, if we remember, 0.005 times the payoff on that old loan was right there. So that's that fee to pay off the old loan. Well, but we also have fees to get the new loan. So we're going to have the $12,000 in fees times 1.1. Remember, they grew by 10%. And we're going to have an origination fee on the new loan, 0.01 times the new loan amount, which is this maximum loan amount right here. So we end up with fees of $30,000 to get the new loan. And whether we're going to keep that new loan for 2 or 3 years, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be the same amount. So I'm just going to point to that. I'm kind of doing a quick version here. Normally I wouldn't key a lot of these values into the formulas, but I'm just trying to make it a little bit faster. And we know what our payments are going to be in the first and the second year. In the first year and the second year, it's just going to be that amount we were looking at earlier, which is that 933 times 12. So we have a payment of 100. Well, it's a negative amount, so we'll go ahead and put our negative in there. And to keep things quick, I'm just going to point to that one, that guy right there. And it's going to be the same exact payments for whether we keep it 1 year or 2, or I'm sorry, 2 years or 3. So there we go. So we have fees up front. It's going to be the same no matter whether we keep it 2 or 3 years. Then we're going to have fees. We're going to have payments of $112,000. All right. Now, are we going to have early termination fees? Well, of course, because we would not have kept the new loan for the full term either. So now we're going to have to pay that 0.5% on the outstanding balance of the new loan after the 2-year period. So let's figure out what that would be. So that's going to be it's going to be 0.005 times the payoff on the new loan, which is the PV of the rate on the new loan, which we have here, divided by 12. And we have the number of periods is going to be, remember our new loan is going to be 15 years minus 2 times 12. I need to go ahead and put these guys in parentheses to make that calculation work correctly. And what was our payment on the new loan? You know it. It's right there. It's at $993.33. So our early termination fee after the second year is going to be $49.06. And as I showed you that little trick earlier, we're going to go ahead and copy that, because then all I have to do is change that 2 to a 3. copy that, paste it. Remember, I double clicked when I pasted it, so I went into the cell. I'm going to take that 2, change it to a 3. Now it's 15 years minus 3. Everything else stays the same. So instead of my early termination fee being $49.06, it's now $49.57. Let's copy that formatting, copy, and we'll paste special, and you can see right here we'll paste that formatting. All right. So our fees are going to either be, we're going to pay the 30 grand to get the loan, and then we're going to either pay 49 or 46.58. Here's our payments, and then we're going to have the payoff on the new loan, which is going to be these scenarios here. Now we already have those calculated, so I can simply just copy that guy right there, and we know that the answer is going to be right there. So we're going to either pay $98.81 because I had already calculated the present value of the payoff of that loan right there to calculate my early termination fee. And I can do the same thing down here. I can go ahead and grab this formula here, the present value of the payments with 15 years minus the 3, and jump down here and paste it in there, and I have 931. Okay, so now we have our basic sets of cash flows for our 2 and 3 year look. The only piece that we need to come back and consider is related to that very first thing I mentioned, which was how much is the bank going to loan us. Keep in mind that in order to pay off that old loan, we have to pay them $1.2 million. Let me get rid of these pennies here. But we're only borrowing 1.071, so we've got to come out of pocket, if we refinance, the difference between these two amounts. So in order to even refinance, we've got to come up with some cash. So let's put that in as an amount here if I refinance under our payoff scenarios. So our payoff, if we were to get the new loan in either one of these scenarios, here or here, whether we keep it for 2 or 3 years, I've got to come up with some cash. So that difference is going to be the 1.071 million minus the 1.25. So let's go ahead and put those in here. Alrighty. And we're going to have, it's going to be the same amount either way. So we can just copy that guy there. So now we just need to make our decision. So we're going to either be doing this 2-year scenario here or this 2-year scenario here, or we're going to be doing a 3-year or a 3-year. So we're just going to compare those, and we'll just do a 2-year compare or a 3-year compare. And we're going to compare what our costs are up front under the 2 scenarios. So we're going to have a payoff here potentially of 0, and we're going to have a time 0, or what we're going to have to pay today, of nothing, or a time 0 today, or it's going to cost us $184,000 to do this refinance. So let's just do that quick calculation. All right, so we'll just take our 2-year number for the refi and subtract out our keep the current loan, and we'll just pull that out. And then we'll do the same thing for our 3-year. We'll take our total from our refi and we'll subtract out the difference, and we'll come up with the difference between the 2 scenarios. So here's our cash flow for making the decision. If we think we're going to keep the building for 2 years, then we're going to pay out $184,278. First year we're going to get a positive cash flow of the difference between our payments. Given the payments either going to be $122 or $112 for the full year of each year, and then we're going to also have a difference in our payoffs, fees and so forth, of $209, or in the 3-year It's going to be $226, which includes that $10,000. So our internal rate of return is going to simply be, on these two scenarios, 10% or 11%. And let's get some decimals here. It's either going to be 9.5% or 11%. Well, what are we going to do? We're either going to get, if we think that we're going to keep this thing for a couple years, we're going to get a 9.5% rate of return by making this decision. 3 years, we're going to have an 11% rate of return for making this decision. Well, what was our decision criteria? Let's go back to our case. Our decision criteria is 12%. So the question is, do either one of these exceed 12%? Well, they don't. Neither one of them exceed our decision-making criteria in this case. They're both below our target threshold. So in this case, we would not do the refinance under either scenario. A lot of real small things could change this around. Our NOI, change to our NOI could change this around. If our discount rate was set at 10%, well, we would do it if we thought we were going to be hold the building for 3 years, but if we thought it might be more likely to be 2, then we wouldn't do it. So that's how we're going to do this problem. And you just simply lay out your scenario for your old loan and look what it would be if you didn't do anything. Come up with what it would look like on your new loan, and then just do a simple comparison between the two and do an internal rate of return calculation on them.